From the beginning of time, humans have sought out altered states of consciousness, whether that be alcohol, cannabis, opiates. We could honestly sit here forever just naming it. Today, I want y'all to join me on a magical ride studying temptation through time. I'm very fascinated by the story of substances. How did we get to here? What was it like back then? What was the purpose? Was it recreational as now, or was it purely for spiritual intent? Were we seeking higher consciousness, or just trying to have a good time? In this new series, Temptation Through Time, I'm going down the story of substances. I'm discussing humans' craving for altered states, why this might be, morality versus medicine, and how culture uses framework to discuss these substances. But why do humans seek out these altered mental states? You see, it's actually quite simple. Substance use pretty much is due to the evolution of the way that our brain's pathways have adjusted to the differences between nomadic lifestyles in Mesopotamia all the way to current urban living situations where, the only park that you go to is Central Park. Not exactly my experience, but for some that is. The majority of the 8 billion live in cities. And over time, the life patterns and survival requirements have evolved. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing. We have made so many technological innovations and medicine has come so far. But at the same time, the activities and achievements that traditionally cause these chemicals in our brain that are linked to happiness and the opposite of depression, such as dopamine and serotonin, those receptors are just not engaged because the original input or thing that would cause these chemicals to be released just don't exist. Like, you can't go out and kill a mammoth. You can't do these incredibly hard rituals to prove that you're a man. Like, these aren't things that are common in our current society. Does that mean that they're necessarily need to be reinstated? No. Our society has evolved past our chemical receptors. And as argued in the 1989's The Origins of Human Drug Use, Cultural and Evolutionary Perspectives by Ronald K. Siegel, published in the Natural History Journal, the urge to get high is as basic as hunger or sex. Therefore, if essentially humans are only going to keep using more because we just keep diverting from the traditional lifestyle of a nomad, how quickly from the beginning of time did humans seek these altered mental states? I found this article called Psychoactive Substances in Prehistoric Times, Examining the Archaeological Evidence, Time and Mind, Volume 8, Number 1, published by ResearchGate in 2015. And what she said boils down to that the introduction and induction of altered states of consciousness is just tied to religion, essentially. The original forms of altered states of consciousness are linked to ancient rituals as old as time itself. In some societies, it was viewed as a part of personal development into adulthood. Erica B., an anthropologist, studied 488 different societies, which was referential to approximately 57% of global culture. And upon tally, a whopping total of 438 out of that 488 different studied cultures under her belt incorporated some sort of altered state of consciousness. These things varied amongst societies, whether it be a tea or a particular nut or cannabis, like something that you might smoke, as well as tobacco. It's important to note that a lot of these ritualistic states were achieved in addition to having this core need, a survival necessity such as hydration, proper nutrition, sleep. Those might have been depreciated in order to have a more prominent effect long term. And intensive breathwork is also linked to aiding these situations, these ceremonies. No one likes being called an addict. I think if you consume any kind of substance, it's bound to happen. It's likely, it's expected, it's a part of the game, you know? But the point that I wonder a lot is the morality versus the medication. Is it moral to self-medicate? There's a lot of thoughts on these within even the United States. But essentially, when it comes down to the psychiatric level, ethically, the consensus in terms of altered states of consciousness is that although it's not necessarily something that we cheer for, you know, or we're not gonna go endorse methamphetamine to everybody, these things have serious consequences and are not any kind of joke. But it's very important to inform the naive, to prevent awful situations and consequences that were unintended to happen from happening. And so essentially, as I said, it boils down to self-responsibility. The only thing that you can take charge of is your actions. A parent, a friend, a cousin, even yourself, you might want to express criticism or dissent. But overall, an individual's actions that induce these states of consciousness fall into personal discretion. Therefore, if we really can't stop someone from making that decision, or if you are someone that just doesn't intend to quit, what is the scientific impact, as we understand at this point in time in 2025, of long-term use of substances that alter states of consciousness? There's a ton of beautiful articles over these. One entitled Long-Term Effects of Psychedelic Drugs, as published by the Neuroscience and Biobehavioral Reviews Journal, Volume 113 in 2020. Nothing really is cemented as far as long-term usage of substances, because beginning in the 1970s, essentially, all research was banned in support of pharmaceutical companies' needs. Therefore, to get past the societal complications that have arisen since the 1970s, in the past 5 years, we've seen more and more study that consists of well-screened and well-monitored volunteers that express positive benefits via mind-altering substances. They often state, as in the article, that these things offer beneficial life experience and lessons learned through mystical experiences, feelings of connectedness, emotional breakthrough, and increased neural entropy. But if substances don't just affect the individual using them, how do substances affect societal morality at large? Societal perceptions are known to be a roller coaster by lawmaking and political advocates to aid these pharmaceutical companies. A quick question that often comes up is, did these substances, as they're incorporated in ancient religious rites, did they initiate these concepts of morality or using plants as medicine? Albert Hofmann and Richard Evans Schultz both wrote a book called Plants of the Gods, Their Sacred Healing and Hallucinogenic Powers. I believe Joe Rogan touched on this, but essentially, one, Hoffman, the scientist behind LSD synthesization, and Evan Schultz, they both decided that sacred and medicinal use conclusively shaped ancient health systems and spiritual codes. And now that we understand that the use of these substances helped shape ancient health systems and spiritual codes, how do the current cultures different from the times where they were more accepted and more included in personal lifestyle? Throughout history, altered states of consciousness have been present. Substances have been in use, whether that be by the nomadic people in those traditions or people currently that use traditions, even high schoolers at a rave, for instance. But before the 20th century, they were primarily imbibed during religious rites and other spiritual experiences. And the intent was not for recreational enjoyment, but more to reach these enlightened or dopey states of consciousness. By the 1950s, the Swiss chemist we referred to earlier, who synthesized LSD, Alex Hoffman, was researching the potential mental health benefits via psychedelics. That said, by 1960, the societal approval for these substances began to diminish. The countercultural movement got blasted in the wake of Vietnam, and in consequence, the societal approval for these diminished. And in the light of pharmaceutical lobbyists and the U.S. Controlled Substances Act of 1970, the majority of psychedelics were classified as Schedule I drugs, and it effectively halted the research that Alex Hoffman had been doing for decades up to this point. So currently, we're not in the 1970s. What is the current consensus? Because of the internet, because of these other things, people are able to access more information and really utilize their curiosity and find answers about the world that's so big. And because people are more curious in general, these substances are gaining more popularity outside counterculture and fringe movements. And mental health experts are beginning to start where Hoffman and others left off. In the past 5 years, so many more studies surrounding these substances have come out and been released. Next week, we'll be touching on the accidental elixir, prehistoric fermentation of alcohol. We're going to learn about how humans first encountered alcohol, the sacred use, and how it helped people bond socially. Thank you for tuning in. Look forward to next time. As always, I'm Druid. Stay safe. Peace.